Welcome everyone to another talent talk with Anika and I. Anika, welcome. How you doing?
Hi, Lewis. I'm doing good. Thank you. Thanks for joining in, everyone. Happy to be here.
Love it. Love it. We were just talking that we've been doing a lot of recruiting recently. Well, always, because obviously we do recruiting. But we keep coming up with the same challenges. And we thought we'd just share kind of stories from the front line of recruiting, so to speak, because we're probably on the front line of recruiting somewhere. So we're going to discuss some of the key things that we're finding, challenges recruiting managers have, how some hiring managers are kind of not quite aligned with the market, because the market dictates a lot of the time pay and experience, all these kind of things. So do you want to kick us off, Anika? What have you, with obviously not mentioning any company names or candidates,
Sure.
anything like that. So we'll share some stories, but obviously we'll be, keeping everything else confidential. Sure. But what are your thoughts and what are you saying?
Sure. Thanks, Lewis. So I think there are a lot of challenges lately that we have been observing in terms of recruitment. Firstly, we are facing a talent shortage. Many people would not know, but in some of the niche sectors that we operate in, specifically where it's technical job that has to be done, maybe like a mechanical engineer, which has to be placed for a certain company, we are facing that talent gap. There is a skills shortage that we observe because most of these people will not be available on these traditional sources that we would reach out to and might not be looking for a change. So that actually creates a gap in the market where people will require that talent to be filled up, but they are not looking for lateral movement.
Yeah. So you kind of have, I always describe it as in demand. You have in demand talent. So where there are fewer jobs than there are people available. And then you have in demand jobs where there's loads of people and not many jobs available. And so I think, you can kind of put it like that. And I also think, we're talking globally now, right? So we recruit in the US, in Europe, in the UK, Anika's in India. So we're doing global searches. And I think, by and large, you're right. Like there are certain, despite what the print papers are printing, because the papers have been printing a lot of negative stuff. And you've seen like financial services kind of cutting, technology firms cutting and stuff. But there are many industries and jobs within them that are in high demand. And I also think that it's still difficult for companies to hire the right people because it's not just about hiring anyone, right? And sometimes also the people that have lost their jobs aren't necessarily the types of people that companies are looking to hire. And also we've never been great, I don't think, as a society and whatever at retraining people to do the jobs that we need them to do. So I think there's a lot of the dynamics. But you're right, I think a lot of these jobs do stay open a while and it's hard to find them. So I think if you're hiring, you need to, some people just assume, this is going to be really easy, right? With loads of people available, but it isn't often the case,
Absolutely. True. So like you rightly said that there are many jobs, but people are not skilled up to it. The problem there is assessments as well. Like, how do we assess for those technical jobs that we are looking for people? And what happens is either people will move out of the role, they'll go in a different industry altogether, or probably when they reach a certain age, they will retire. So again, there's a gap in the market. So how to assess those people is another, I would say, a challenge that we face because we would be the matchmakers there as recruiters, but the technical assessments, case studies, they play a major role where a person might look very good on paper, but might not go through that technical assessment that the company is looking for.
Yeah, you're right. It's funny you mentioned that because I can't remember the stat now. But a lot of people transition to different or want to transition into different industries and stuff. And I think no longer can you expect to, so if someone leaves your job, you can no longer expect to hire someone that looks the same, There just might be less people. As you put, they may have retired, they may have gone into a different industry, completely reevaluated their life over the last couple of years. So I think you just have to, right at the beginning, it just goes back to the basics of like, just define what it is you're looking for this person to do.
True, absolutely. I think another challenge, Louis, would be what are your thoughts on diversity and inclusion? We worked on a role together on diversity and inclusion where we were looking for this candidate for the client. But what happens is sometimes they don't know what exactly in terms of the skill set that they are looking for. So here it is another challenge, how to reach out to those people, find that perfect candidate that the client has charted down for you, which may or may not exist, because it's like, best of all the worlds possible. So the client would want everything in one candidate to go through the whole spectrum of responsibilities. So how to find that candidate is another challenge in terms
Massively.
of expectations.
Oh, massively. We go to take a brief and, they're looking for XYZ. And I think for us, we're consultants and right up front, our interesting thing is just really asking the right questions to almost weed out what is it exactly that, what is it, what's the job? Or even maybe even before, what is it that you need this person to do? Then you think, okay, so what are the absolute must-have requirements? What are the must-have skills from this person and what can you train on? And I think there's the technical stuff and also there's the human skills. So attitude, motivation, those kinds of things, empathy, because I think when the right person is going to have a combination, because, I'm a big advocate of this. If someone has the right human skills, the right ingredients, they're dependable, they're open to learning, they're going to come, they want to work hard, they want to learn and stuff, then actually, if you say, well, do you know what? As long as you've got like these two skills, then I'm gonna invest some time training and developing you. Then that's such a wonderful thing because you can nurture them and so forth. And that means also then you've got a wider pool of talent, right? You can look at people that have from these this minimum skills or so all the way to and you've got a nice range and pool of candidates that you can look at. And obviously not forgetting, because I'm also, it annoys me sometimes as well, this is that when you hear someone saying, oh, they're overqualified for the job, or they're too experienced for the job. Because also the other thing is, some people just want to come and do a job, right? And maybe they've done the job before, maybe they've done the job above, but maybe they just want to come in and just do the job, earn some money. They don't want to take your job, the hiring manager, that's cool. They don't want to take your job. It's all good, because that's often people get a little bit nervous about hiring some. So I think we're right early on, you've defined the job. You've thought about what are the actually kind of like the minimum must-have skills. You've identified kind of, what type of person will add or fit into your culture. And then you can go find them. And I think doing that up front, and then also having whoever is in your interview process aligned with it, it gives you a good chance, to really go and find the right person.
Absolutely. Like if you have limited budget and resources, and it's like finding Hercules for a budget of a jester. So you are actually looking for a Hercules, but you're paying for a clown. So
well, we've had a few of these, right? Yeah. So elaborate on that. So what are you saying that people are looking for a million things, but will only look
absolutely. Absolutely. So they would want a person to. So we recently had a client looking for a similar situation where they want a person to have all the attributes to look at the future responsibilities that the person at that level can take up and also fulfilling the past responsibilities. But they would have a budget of the past responsibilities. So to say, if they are paying for a senior manager, they would want to pay the salary of a manager, but still want the person to fulfill the responsibility of senior manager and manager. So that is another challenge that you face on a day-to-day basis, because sometimes clients don't understand the market well because they have not been on the front line experiencing how the candidates are placed. what are the salaries that have been offered for the roles at the levels that they're looking across, and still they would want to pay what they were paying like 2 years back. So that's another challenge of limited resources.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because we've had a lot of salary inflation, pretty much everywhere. You know, in India, the salaries are been going up a lot. UK, US, you know, there's been real inflation, and I think if you're in a role and you're hiring, and you're right, you're not quite sure what the market is paying. But then and then you look at your team, right? Because this is fair enough, because you have like the external market, and then you have your internal market, so to speak, and you look at your team, and they're being paid X, and you kind of have to bring them in similar, right? Otherwise, I mean, you know, people talk. We have pay transparency stuff. If you're in the US, you have to advertise the pay range. Not true in Europe. I don't think true in India either. So there's variation across, but you know, people can find out what someone is coming in at quite easily, right? Just be like, oh, well, you know, what is salary, whatever. So if you're hiring, it's quite difficult. So you can go out to market and you're trying to get someone in at the same level, but it's moved, and you haven't been giving your team significant pay increases. And so there lies a big issue where you go to market, you want to pay similar to what your team are getting paid, but people are already on that. You know, assuming you want someone at the same level. And we're finding a big disparity between what people are willing to pay and what candidates are wanting, you know, what their expectations are.
True. In this case, the candidates also go through other aspects when they take up the offer, because they know that they would not be matching up the offer what is there in the market already. And here it's a different role. Plus, they are expected to do much more than they would at that level. So you're right. Like, we would look for candidates that we could coach and mentor so that they can come up to the level, but still being there in the budget of the client. So that it's a win-win for both.
Yeah, exactly. So if you at the beginning, if you think, okay, I'm happy to take someone that's a bit more junior, they can build up. Maybe someone that's more senior, they'll take a view on remuneration and stuff. And you give yourself a best opportunity. And the other thing, just to mention as well, is it's not all about money, right? I mean, money is important. So you have to kind of, you know, you have to pay market rate, let's say. But as we know, and you shared a stat a few talent talks ago, actually, about, was it like 60-something% of workers in India are leaving because of their line manager. Toxic boss, that's it. And McKinsey did a study, 75% of employees they polled said the biggest cause of stress in their work was their boss. So, you know, there are other aspects. So culture, people, like if you give someone an incredible candidate experience, like just, you know, they come out of the interview process being like, oh my, like, this is the firm I need to work at. Like, the people are amazing. They're going to, they're going to invest in my training. They're going to give me, I mean, people want opportunities, right? They want to feel part of something, not just a participant in something, you know. And I think if you get this kind of thing right, and then it comes, you know, to the end, to the remuneration, and I think you're probably in a stronger position as a hiring manager, to be able to kind of get someone in within the budget you're hoping to pay, as long as it's realistic at the beginning, you know. But I think that gives you a good chance there.
True. I mean, I completely agree with you. In fact, we were just talking about diversity and inclusion, and I read somewhere that there was a survey conducted. So I have one more stat for the day. So there are like 58% people out of the LGBTQAI plus community are feeling secure at work, and only 50% feel comfortable in a diverse environment. So, of course, there is some level of, toxicity or culture, so to say, which is not the salary package or the job responsibility related attributes when people are looking for a new workplace or looking to stay longer in the current workplace. So that's, you're absolutely correct. That, like, culture is another underrated attribute, because we have been focusing more on the monetary aspects when looking for a job.
Yeah, you want to feel part of something, don't you? We all do, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to be, and it's more than just being happy. I think you just want to feel like, you know, you're contributing, you're being productive, you're part of something. You know, like I think it's a good thing. I mean, obviously economics is important, and you need to be earning a certain amount of money. You know, if you've got a family, you have a mortgage. I mean, there's, you know, many things, like there's been a lot of inflation, things have been costing more. I mean, so, you know, I mean, someone can just turn around and say, hey, Lewis and Anika, you know, get real. It's about the money. You know, so you know, I think there's context, of course, right? But I think the ideal for me is, you know, if you're a company, is to create a great environment where people feel valued, feel part of it, they feel like they're earning what they're a fair wage, and they feel part of the crew. And for an individual, I think also that's what you want, right? You want to earn money, you want to learn, develop, contribute, feel part of the family, things like that. And if you don't get it right as a company, then I think you have a lot of these problems. People leave, you can't keep staff as long as you want to, and you keep on. I mean, it's expensive having to rehire. It takes a lot of time as well. So, you know, it's important to get right.
Absolutely. And I think that's another point that I would definitely want to talk about would be when we're facing these challenges, another thing that we overlook is the candidate experience, which we really talk about at Bentley Lewis. Like, we are advocates of giving the perfect candidate experience when we are reaching out to them or they are looking for a job. So that is another thing, that brand association is there in terms of the new employees that you're trying to get on board, because that's how you can really you can really fill up that skill gap that we have in terms of finding that right candidate.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think it's also just managing expectations up front as well. You know, I mean, a lot of people talk about the length of an interview. You know, like you see someone online, it's got to be, it can't be more than 3, or, you know, can't they know after 2 or whatever. I think with that though, from my perspective, the context is important. Like if you're hiring, we hire senior execs, so we do senior hires, and often there's quite a lot of stakeholders involved. So however many people have to be involved, I think if you're the hiring company, if you're the company hiring, make sure everyone's aligned. So all this stuff we've talked about, you know, make sure people are aligned. They know what you're looking for. They know what their kind of minimum skills are, whatever, all the stuff, you know, that everyone's aligned, and communicate with the candidate. And you say, hey, look, there's going to be 10 interviews here, just to let you know, and these are the people you're going to meet. This is why. And then I think you're on a good, it's a good thing to do. Because also for an individual, like if you're looking for a new job, there is something to be said for meeting, you know, a decent amount of people in the new company, because you're going to be spending more time with these people than your family and friends, whether it's virtual or not. The big problems I find is when a candidate's interviewed and they've interviewed, and then they expect it's the end, and then the client says, oh, just one more interview. And then, oh, just one more, you know, oh, someone else wants to meet you. And then it starts getting, you know, and it's drifted. And so I think managing expectations is key. Let people know. Even if there's, say, 10 interviews, let's say, right? That doesn't mean it has to be over 10 weeks. Then you start to lose people, you know. Like we had a good chief marketing officer was looking for a new job, and she was interviewing 2 places. And she was interviewing this client, not through us, hasten to add. And she was on, I don't know, I think she was on interview 8, but it had been like 3.5 months or something, you know, and she was getting tired, because there is something about interview fatigue, you know, it just gets tiring. Another company had approached her, and they also had I think it was 5 or 6 interviews, but they did it within 2 to 3 weeks. And she got offered the job, and she accepted it, and then she withdrew from the other process. And the hiring manager in the other process was like, oh my God, like, they want to see it through, you know, why wouldn't someone want to invest like 6 months interviewing with us? There was a real unappreciation of, the kind of time that people go through with interviews, because, you invest, if you've got an hour interview, you invest like an hour or two at the beginning, prepping, thinking about it. Then you've got the hour interview. Then you're downloading. How did I do? What could I have done better? So you're kind of all in for one hour interview. You might have spent 5 hours, in it. And I think people often miss that.
True. Absolutely. Because people do want to invest time in an interview process, but they are also looking at other opportunities. So we again tend to lose out on a lot of candidates there. So that should be really concise. If, for example, if it's taking a lot of time and you don't want to engage the person in a lot of conversations, I think assessments will be a good way to gauge the person for a specific profile, so that it reduces the interview process time, and the candidate is also really hooked for the job profile.
Yeah. We see quite a few. I mean, quite a few do assessments. Some do, some don't. Some people like them, some people don't. I think it shouldn't be used to reject candidates solely on that. I think it needs to be used as part of the interview process. And so if you're doing a psychometric personality questionnaire, do it somewhere in the middle. Otherwise, if you do it at the end, you're just trying to justify the decision you've already made, right? You're like, oh my God, I really want to hire this person. Let's do a quick psychometric just to make sure. But if you do it in the middle, then you can use it as part of the next interviews. So you can delve in, to some of their strengths, some of their development areas and whatever. And if you hire them, it's a good thing to use for onboarding, so that you set them up for success and you do all you can. Because, let's not forget, you've got them in, then you need to make sure they do well. And a lot of people, a lot of companies, they don't quite set people up for success. I spoke to someone the other day, they started a new job, they're still waiting for their laptop about a month later. It's crazy. Although it's funny, actually, you'd said that we tried to hire, we tried to get a laptop, and it took about $1 million. I can't remember who it was. Yeah. One of the companies, we won't mention them, but they kept delaying our shipment. Anyway, but do what you can to make people feel welcome. Whether it's the technology, introducing them to all the relevant people, so they can build the relationships and those connections and stuff is important. So, anything else that you think that you've come up, that you've seen this last few months where just the alignment hasn't been quite there, that stopped people hiring the right people?
I think nothing else, but I would just sum it up and say that we try to bridge the gap as much as possible, try to meet the client's expectations as well as the candidates. The important thing is to focus more on getting at least 4 out of 5 correct, because somewhere you have to meet them in the middle. So I would just say that.
Definitely. No, I love that. And I think for me, there's a lot to be said for hiring, for attitude. If you take time, if you find someone that has incredible potential, who is reliable, motivated, from what you can tell from the interview process, hire them, train them, develop them, nurture them, things like that. There are obviously jobs where you need technical knowledge, so, obviously take this in context. But yeah, give yourself, keep it open, give yourself the best chance to have as wide a talent pool as you can. And then you can, you have more choice, and then you'll be able to make a better hire. So that's what I would do. Anika, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining. Do not forget to follow us, subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, all of that stuff. And have a great day.